Once upon a time, there was a man. He had no job, had nowhere to live, he had no family, he had no partner in his life. He just felt he was the most unluckiest man because he didn't even have any friends. And he was in total despair and wasn't sure what he was going to do. And he was standing there with his head in his hands, and just by the side of him, there's a voice. Are you all right? And he turned and he looked, and it was an old lady. And she said, are you all right? He said, I am just so unlucky. Nothing ever goes right for me. I have nothing to stay in this world for. And she looked at him and she said, you need to go and look for your luck, don't you? Why don't you go to the end of the world to ask the wise old woman where your luck is coming from? And he stood for a moment and thought about that, and he said, I have nothing to lose. And he turned to ask her which way he should go. She seemed to have gone. Well, when you don't know, you have to just take your luck, don't you? And so he put one foot in front of the other and then just waited to see where he would go. And he walked and he walked and he walked, and he came to a fork in the road. And down one fork he looked, and it was quite dark and quite shadowy, and was that a wolf in the middle of the road? Don't think he'll go down there. And the other way, well, it was very bright and light and very shimmery. So he walked down that road. And as he got to the shimmering, he realised it was a river. And on the other side of the river, there was a ferry boatman. Now, it was one of those kind of punts with a pole. And the ferry boatman came across and said, did you want to cross, sir? And our man says, yes, please. So he gets in the boat and he gives the ferry boatman a shilling. He said, that's the last of my money. I have no money left. I have nothing left. But I am on the way to the end of the world to ask the wise old woman where I can find my luck. And the ferry boatman says, well, while you're doing that, would you do me a favour and ask her why, what, how I can get off this boat? I've been here for years, and yet I never seem to be able to get away. Of course, says our man, I'd be pleased to ask. And so he walked and he walked and he walked. And he came to a wood, and it was getting dark, and he was looking for somewhere to sleep. And then in the middle of the wood he came across a tree, a tall, spindly tree that went, And our man said, what's the matter with you? Oh, says the tree. Oh, when my brothers and sisters and I were born here, and we were planted and we grew and we grew, oh, I have been in such pain all my life, and yet see my brothers and sisters, they are much taller and much bigger than me. Oh, says our man. Well, I'm on my way to see the wise old woman at the end of the world, to ask her where my luck's coming from. Do you want me to ask her for you? Oh, yes, please, says the tree. And if you sleep underneath me tonight, I will look after you. Oh. And so the man slept very well. When he got up in the morning, he waved goodbye to the tree, and the tree, and he walked. And he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked, and he came to the top of a valley. He looked down into the valley. Oh, it's beautiful and lush. There were fields of corn and wheat and barley. There were fields of cows and pigs and sheep and horses. And in the middle of it all was a little cottage with smoke coming out of the chimney and roses around the door. But as he came up to the house, he could hear and he knocked on the door. And a woman came to the door. Oh, I'm so sorry. And a man says to her, what's the matter? Why are you crying? She said, I don't know why I'm crying. I cry all the time. I just don't know. And our man says, well, look, I'm going to see the wise old woman at the end of the world to find out about my luck. Do you want me to ask her why you're crying all the time? And she looked at him and she said, oh, Yes, please. That would be very nice. That's very helpful of you. Would you like to come in and I could give you something to eat and maybe a bed for the night? And he said, yes, please. That would be very nice. And so the next morning, as he walked away from the house, the woman stood in the door and, bye, she said. See you soon. And he turned around and waved and said, see you soon. And he walked and he walked and he walked. And he walked for so long and so far until he did come to the end of the world. And as he got to the end of the world, he could just see a little house on the horizon. And sitting outside the house was a little old lady who looked vaguely familiar, but he couldn't place where he'd seen her before. But she was sitting on a chair in front of a big cauldron, and it's bubbling away. And as he came up toward her, she said, come on, sit down, sit down. And so he sat down next to her, and she said, would you like a cup of tea? And he said, oh, yes, please, that would be very nice. So she gave him a cup of tea. And she said, I'm the wise old woman at the end of the world. Have you got anything you want to ask me? And he said, oh, yeah. I met this woman, and she was crying all the time. And I said, I'd ask you about her. Oh, yes, he says, I know about that woman. I know why she's crying. And this is what you must tell her. Oh, okay, says our man. All right, I'll tell her that. Good. And said the wise old woman, is there anything else you want to ask me? Yeah, I met this tree, and it's a tiny little tree in the middle of a big forest of trees, and they're all planted at the same time, and it's in such agony. And she says, oh, yes, I know about him. And this is what you must tell him. Oh, okay, I'll try to remember that. Thank you. Anything else? This is ferry boatman. Nice guy. It says he's stuck on his ferry boat and wants to know how to get off. Ah, yes, he says, I know about him too. All right, okay, thank you. I'll let him know. And our man starts to get up and to walk away. And she says, excuse me, is there anything else you want to ask me? And he looks at her, oh, see, this is what I do all the time. You know, this is why I have no luck. I just forget to do things. I walk away. Oh, where am I going to find my luck? And she looked at him and she said, you don't have to worry because your luck is coming to you. It is. All you got to do is be ready to grab it with both hands. He said, is that it? Just grab it with both hands. And she said, yes, grab it with both hands. All right, he says, thank you. And he walked and he walked and he walked and he came back and he came to that ridge and that valley and looked down and there were the fields of wheat and corn and barley and the fields of horses and cows and pigs and sheep. And there in the middle there was the cottage and there was the smoke coming from the chimney and there was the roses round the door, and as he came up to the door he could go, oh, 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 and he could hear her crying, and he knocked on the door and she came to the door and she said, oh, hello, you came back? And he said, yes. He said, come in. And she cooked him some dinner and she said, how did you get on? And he said, well, I saw the wise old woman at the end of the world and she told me my luck's coming to me. I've just got to be ready to grab it with both hands. And she said, did you say anything about me? And he said, oh, yeah. She said that the reason why you're crying is because you're lonely. And what you need to do is to find somebody who you like and ask them to share it with you. Oh. Actually, I rather like you. Would you share this with me? And he looked at her, and he looked around, and said, I'm sorry, but I've got to be ready to grab my luck when it happens. I can't stay here. He got up and walked out the door, and he walked and he walked and he walked as far as away as he could to get from that woman who was still crying. And he came to the wood. And in the wood there was still that tree. And he went and found the tree and he said, hello, tree. And the tree said, oh, you came back. Yes, he said. How did you get on? Well, says our man, the wise old woman says I've got to be ready to grab my luck when it comes. Oh, did she say anything about me? Yes, he said. The reason why you're so thin and spindly is that when you were all planted with your brothers and sisters, robbers came and they planted a box of gold in your roots. And all you've got to do is ask them to dig it out for you, and then you'll be fine. Oh. Oh, look, there's a handy little spade down there. Do you think you could dig out the box of gold? You can keep the box of gold. I have no need for it. And a man looked at the box of the shovel, and he looked at the roots, and he looked at the... Sorry, I've got to be ready to grab my luck when it comes. At which point, the tree started wailing, and our man got up and walked away as fast as he could. And he walked, and he walked, and he walked, and he walked. And he came back, and he could just see the shimmering. And there was the ferry boatman. And the ferry boatman said, "Hello, didn't expect to see you back." "Oh, yes," says our man. "How did you get on?" Well, our man told him all about the woman, and then he told him all about the tree in the box of gold. And then he told him about how he's got to be ready to grab his luck when it comes. And the ferry boatman said, did you ask her about me at all?" "Oh, yes," said our man. "The reason why you can't get off this boat is because you're under an enchantment. And all you have to do is to hand your pole to the first fool who comes along, and then you'll be free." And to be fair, the ferry boatman did say, "And you left that woman and that house and all the things that she offered you?" "Yes." "And you left that tree and that box of gold?" "Yes." "Yeah," said the ferry boatman. "Do you think you could just hold this for a moment?" And our man looked up, and he could see his luck coming forward to him, and he grabbed it with both hands. And the ferry boatman jumps off the ferry boat, and he ran, and he ran, and he ran. And I can't tell you whether or not he went and found that box of gold under that tree. And I can't tell you whether he went and found that woman and shared her life with her. But I can tell you, you're probably thinking that our man was a fool to have walked away from both of those. No. He is so happy. The job he's got, he goes backwards and forwards every day, meets lots of people, has loads of friends. Ooh, might even have met somebody he cares for. Don't want to come and jinx that. But he blesses the day he met the wise old woman at the end of the world. And do you know, just because somebody else thinks you should be doing something, what's more important is that you do what suits you and not what other people think.